What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the third album by American singer Sean Kingston. Basically, this product is called Back to Life, and it came out in the late summer of 2013. So the thing with this particular album is Sean Kingston did not drop an album every other year after 2009 as far as this pitch can happen. Basically, that's the fair as to how things were happening around that point. His first two albums were 2007, 2009. Now, Sean Kingston did drop a hit quality mixtape, which I gave like a classic score as well back in 2011 called King of Kings, which was kind of low-key about it. I mean, unfortunately, that product didn't have a single and pitches like that, but it is pretty good type of appeal. It had some folks on there like Akon and pitches like that. Had some other type of folks that were pretty big names within the product of that, so it did have some good appeal. The only real snag to that product, like I was saying, is just the fact that it didn't have a single. But other than that, it had a lot of commercial kind of bite. It's kind of a beleaguered, it's kind of a more melded and swash kind of mixtape for the time. I mean, it was still pretty powerful within the pitch. It was still pretty strengthy within a pitch and pitches like that, but it's just kind of the fair that it surprisingly was quieter than you would have thought for Sean Kingston around that time. But between that particular product, I mean, it was an excellent product, but it's just the fair that it kind of, the thing about a mixtape taking the place like an album is it has to have the product, just because the factoid that Sean Kingston's singles that were dropping in 2010, I mean, he did try to put out his third album in 2010, 2011, but the singles just were not catching on as full bound, so it's kind of the pitch he put out that mixtape. But I mean, it's just kind of the pitch. Probably I would have said Letting Go, Dirty Love with Nicki Minaj probably should have been on that mixtape. It was just the pitch that there was just some turbulence with getting out that third album, and then on top of that, he did get in a jet ski accident in the spring of 2011, which pretty much almost unfortunately caused Sean Kingston to be deceased as far as those first album. Now, obviously, horrid thing within those pitches like that would have to say within the aspect, but horrid thing within those aspects. But I look after it here, he did drop a series of things. Sean Kingston did drop a series of singles throughout 2012, 2013, and eventually did. I mean, it felt kind of within the aspect of it that this album. I'm not gonna say it was a fight to get this album out, but not gonna say this album barely came out, but it was within the pitch that it was kind of more of a fight to get this album out than like the product of it within the fair behind it. This was his last album on like a major label as far as those fairs can happen. It's just the pitch that particularly it just felt like the crowds that would have remembered Sean Kingston from 2007, considering that was 6.5 years ago by the time this album came out. His hit days of like Beautiful Girls and Me Love and some of those type of ones were just the crowds of folks from back then didn't have as much memory of that. Pretty much, and the strange thing about his 2009 album is just the pitch that it's a popular album within a relative sense that had some decent gems on there, but it's just not as commonplace that you really hear the product of that album. So it kind of feels like that album was kind of haphazard, despite the fact that it really was excellent. I reviewed that one back in 2023, so some good pitches there. But it's just kind of the product that Sean Kingston, once you get past 2007, it's just kind of the pitch that the product between Sean Kingston, it just feels like the typical airplay that he would get within the fashion of it just kind of feels more haphazard within the pitch. Not to say within the fashion of it having problems, but it's just kind of the factoid as far as saying that he's always kind of had like the trouble kind of exotic type vibes as far as like it's kind of like not necessarily secondary, but just kind of an offshoot, kind of within the typical type fashion. When you think of folks like when you would play like Fly by Sugar Ray and some of those type of folks, it's kind of a tropical type song. It's not every day that you'll hear Shaggy on the radio, folks like them, folks like Sean Paul, some of those type of folks that had to say. So it just felt like there wasn't typical enough room for Sean Kingston on the radio with like the rhythm. It's not to say I agree with it at all, because this album, all 13 songs, including one of the ones that's on like an international edition, I recommend. So it's easy enough to say this album gets a 10 out of 10. It's just the pitch. I think it's a vast kind of unfortunate thing that a lot of these singles did not wind up on any sort of project or album as far as this first came out. Definitely some of these probably should have been on King of Kings or something like that, but at least Letting Go should have been, possibly Dumb Love and Party All Night within some of those type pitches. But then I just would have to say there's some extra songs like Rum and Ray Bans that would have been a pretty excellent song. It makes me question with that particular quality. So it's just kind of the product that Sean Kingston was trying to promote like his third album. Like I said, this is a product that was trying to be fleshed out for a good while. It's just kind of the pitch that a lot of these singles just did not catch on. It's just that format when you think of these folks that kind of had struggles of putting out albums, but they had like a lot of songs like this kind of happen. I want to say some of this happened with like Busta Rhymes, and there's other folks like this happened with I-20. I was recently looking into his would-be 2008 album. Ludacris kind of had this problem in 2012 when he was trying to draw Theater of the Mind. He had like a song called like The Rest of My Life with Usher, some of those type pitches. So it's just when you get these singles that are attempted but they kind of flop on the radio, it's just a pitch that's unfortunate because they kind of just get lost in transaction and you never know about those songs. But just kind of pitch, that's what happened with Sean Kingston. But basic enough to say I recommend every song on here. So within the pitch, as far as me saying, this does have some mixtape centricness, I'd have to say, which is pretty excellent within that fare. It kind of combines that particular format with some leftover Datpiff mixtape era vibes. It just kind of feels like some of these particular eras were kind of wounded within pitch, because this came out around a time when like EDM was starting to wind down a little bit, at least by September 2013. I think a good product of this album was probably made within the fashion of it, but EDM was starting to kind of wind down and starting to wear out, and it's the same thing with like the Datpiff mixtape eras. Like mixtape scene kind of was not full bound winding down, but it's just in the pitch. It was just kind of the format. When you think of like drill and things like that, some of those particular type formats, just within pitch, that there just were some transactions as like in trap and some of those type formats that were going along with it started to shift into like 2010s or mid 2010s trap, and like the Instagram era Migos, some of those type folks were starting to happen, some of those type fairs. But yeah, I look after it here. So Back to Life, Live It Up is the lead single. And the thing about this album, like I was saying, when I was saying that this album barely came out, the biggest song off this album was only a top 55 singles. That's what I was talking about with Sean Kingston's former appeal. This is one that seemed like, this is a product that seemed like it kind of had some haphazardness within the product. But yeah, Back to Life, Live It Up is the lead single. It's like a thriving kind of vintage early 2010s summer hops, kind of getting like a mixtape bustlage as far as this first can happen. So both the two singles off this album that are actually on the album, it's kind of within the pitch as far as saying that these particular fairs just feel ripped out of like the 2010-2011 mixtape. These particular songs feel like they're ripped out of the 2010-2011 Datpiff. Some of that type fair just feels like a summery kind of tropic version of like Yo Gotti, Meek Mill, Rick Ross type vibes within some of those type pitches, which is definitely dope within the format of it, just because, I mean, it's not as commonplace, but maybe folks don't realize that Sean Kingston was kind of a part of like that Datpiff kind of era, some of those type pitches, some of those particular type mixtape romps as far as those first happen. So it's definitely some good pitches. It's a commercial type bite. Now it basically just feels like a mixtape single as far as those first can happen. I mean, this is kind of more uncommon within the pitch. At least has like 7.8 million plays on Spotify, some of those type pitches. But compared to Sean Kingston, like when you knew of like the top 2, top 5 singles that he had back in the day, it's just kind of the pitch. But it is a good song. Like all these songs pretty much. The sound's gonna get 10 out of 10. But Beat and Back to Life has T.I. on there, which is a pretty excellent type pitch. He was getting quieter around this time as well. He was starting to get shoehorned out of the spotlight. Beat It has Chris Brown and Wiz Khalifa. Now, this is a little bit more of a trendy type one, but still feels kind of vying for like more spotlight within the fair behind as far as this fair is going to happen. It's just kind of the pitch that it just feels, not going to say it's like a try-hard type song within the pitch, but it's just kind of the format that it's just strange that like Sean Kingston just didn't have more kind of melded typeness to like the format of like getting out like a particular type album. As far as like I mean, this is strange that folks are not like, hey, you know, new Sean Kingston, hell yeah, fuck yeah, this is some excellent type stuff. Just the excitement and the overall energy for him, this is surprising that it just wasn't as accommodated as Full Bound considering the quality. I mean, he was basically every single one of these. I mean, he had other mixtapes in 2008, 2009, 2010 as well, but it's just the pitch that, you know, at least the 4 projects, including this one that I've reviewed, have been pretty star-studded. So the Beat, it's like a hot weather kind of usual day slagging like an early 2010s mixtape dredge, I'd have to say here. Some commercial bite about this song. It's just overall pretty lit one. So it's just the fashion as far as saying basically just getting like something, not quite mixtape drill, but just within the format of something that would have felt like a single out of like the Datpiff era, something that would have been particularly something for like June or July. It's kind of more tropic type weather where it is going to be scorching 85, 95 degrees, some of those type pitches within the format of it. This gas station run, some of those type pitches, the typical kind of hot residential kind of romps as far as this fair is going to happen. Now there is some smokish type fashion. This is not like, I mean, apart from like the song How We Survived, it's not like a full bound kind of get shit faced type album within the pitch, but it does have a lot of good social aspects about it. It's just kind of the pitch as far as saying that there's some pretty good, this is definitely like a pretty exotic and enjoyable summer as far as this pitch can happen, just like usual fare for Sean Kingston. But it's pretty trendy to 2013, some of those type times. It's just unfortunate that the aspects, it felt like as the tides were shifting, as things were starting to get grafted towards like mid 2010s trap, some of those type formats, it felt like things were trying to shoehorn Sean Kingston out of the spotlight, which is unfortunate. Now, I remember purchasing this album back in the day, definitely fucked with it back in those days, was just kind of the pitch that he did not drop another project. Now, I don't know if he dropped mixtapes around that time, but this was kind of like something, Sean Kingston kind of got quiet after a good while now. At least in terms of studio albums, he didn't drop again until 2022. It was just the pitch that I remember this particular product, but then it was kind of like, you know, he just was not around as full bound within some of those type fairs. But there was a music video for the song Seasonal Love with Wale. So that's a good type pitch here. I'm going to talk as if that's the 3rd single. This is a good type pitch. It probably was one intended for that. But Seasonal Love's like a basic, balmy, kind of hot day loud pack, I'd have to say, within the pitch of it here. Just good, relax, and vacay kind of banger within some of those type fares. Good song to smoke up to and have some barbecue as far as this pitch can have. So it's just with an aspect as far as saying it's the product of just enjoying like the typical embellish of like hot months like August and September and July, some of those type pitches. It's kind of a miss the product to how some of those fares would kind of happen with it. Good type product. I'd say AO 16th floor is a quality one as well. This is like a vintage kind of late 2000s Kingston with like a mild EDM licks about it. I'd have to say with an aspect is some basic kind of it's like some basic kind of snazzy dance gel as far as this pitch can have. So it's just from the pitch there. Like I was saying, with the aspect of like EDM starting to wind down, it's kind of within the pitch. I mean, this is a good crest just because the product of it, Sean Kingston melds with this sound pretty well. There's some ones like Party All Day, Sleep All Night that have that particular appeal in the Japanese edition, which is a pretty good aspect. There are some ones like AO 16th floor and like Smoke Signals, some of these type of pitches, particular ones like that kind of have the after effects of it. I mean, considering the aspect of like the instrumentals and just the flash of these particular songs and just the pizzazz factor and the overall fun factor of these songs, you would have thought that this would have had a lot more time, but it just kind of felt. Sometimes that happens where it just feels like the casual reception about this kind of wins like the concept of quality music, just the impact as far as saying that this wasn't in the mode, as far as saying that this is something that was probably within the product of it, which is unfortunate. I'm glad at least that this product came out, but I'm just surprised that the energy behind this album was just more lukewarm within the pitch. This kind of format is definitely like some basic kind of snazzy dance gel as far as those formats can happen. So it's just within the pitch as far as saying it's the product like after moments, whether it is. I mean, I feel like enough of this kind of has some relative makeshift kind of leftovers just within the pitch behind it. It's the product of some of that particular type fare, just more summer fried kind of workship. It's also within the pitch as far as saying it's just some good accommodations for like the format of just having some turn up within a fashion and just more places where you would hear EDM within a fashion like, you know, restaurant scene and some of those type pitches within more typical type formats. It has a pretty good commercial bite about it, but it's just within the pitch, it just feels more, this time it doesn't even feel secondary. It feels a lot of senses that Sean Kingston shifted from like secondary type music that you'd catch on like an off kind of Tuesday or once in a blue, like some offhanded kind of Tuesdays and Wednesdays, some of those type fairs. Now it feels more tertiary where it's probably like a nightclub or something like that that you only visit like once every 3 or 4 months, some of those type pitches, and especially in the summertime. So it's just in the format of this. It really, I mean, it's probably being polite to say that it's tertiary. It's not saying in terms of quality, but just in terms of casual type of feel. But it is some excellent stuff. Probably one of my more favorite songs off this album is Hold That with Yo Gotti. This is definitely excellent and vicious type one. Definite album standout to say here, like I was saying, good pitch for that. It's like a head trip. And this is like an excellent head trip, kind of exotic dance club night. It has to say within the pitch behind it. Just some bellas kind of accommodate as far as what's supposed to happen. So get your bellas smoked up, some of those type pitches. Make sure have the fashion of making the night fun, some of those type pitches, just the product of just having the right smoke, some of those particular type formats, just being in dance mode. Gab is right, some of those type pitches within the format as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's real like overall like the woozing kind of just head trip type appeal. This particular song is pretty much good standout in terms like a more particular type rap type fashion. Shot to Love with 2 Chainz is a nice one on here. It's like a streaming. This is like a dope streaming kind of day after hours product to kind of get within those aspects. This reminds like a jazzier kind of Drake tune, I'd say, within the pitch, something that he would have done if like his Nothing was the same. And some of his 2013 type appeals would have been more in like a tropical type sense, but it is a pretty hot one within those appeals. So just some summer, just some Spotify summer music within those type of appeals, just for the after hours. Not a super ton of songs within this fashion, but this is definitely a little bit more R&B flavored and less dance hall. How We Survive is a nice one as well within those pitches. This has Busta Rhymes on here. This song reminds of Busy Signal, and by that I mean Busy Signal, the musician, pretty dope reggaeton dude. This song is like a good getting puked out, I'd have to say, but in a responsible type sense format. This definitely want to get real shit faced to some of those type formats, just some quick night craze for us as far as going to happen. This is just one of those type ones that just feels turned upside down. Sean Paul has done some songs like this. Good type pitch to get some of this crazy type factors, just good type fare. Definitely like the blitziness as far as those aspects kind of happen. The song on the Japanese edition, Party All Night, Sleep All Day, is a quality one. Now, this was released in 2010 as a single. It's too bad this was not on the regular edition, but it's definitely worth tracking down in certain senses. But I would question the fashion as to how to get a hold of it, especially nowadays. Now, it's been several years since 2013. This song is like a red hot, kind of crested 2010s EDM highlight to kind of get within the aspects here. Just basic dance louds as far as this pitch can happen. By that, I mean basic dance loud packs. So it's just a pitch. If you're just needing like a typical kind of EDM 2012, 2013 type song with this Sean Kingston on there instead, this is your loud pack for that. Just good type pitch. Just pretty interchangeable with that good aspect. Love Ecstasy, which is the iTunes Store bonus track, which I would definitely probably recommend purchasing this on iTunes if it's still available to get this song, because it's pretty excellent. It's like a summer hop and bop kind of in sleek drifting fashion, I'd say, within the aspects of it here. Just a little bit more calmer in mind, but just the fashion, just have some quick times. Just like some good preoccupied kind of evening slag as far as those formats can happen. So it's just in the pitch as far as saying, yeah, this is just some evening slag here to kind of get within those aspects as far as those pitch can happen. Just kind of say it's just necessary to kind of have some go-arounds within some of those type fashions, just more amidst like the day fair. That's just not it. It's just not as makeshift within the fashion, but still amidst like the product of it. So it's just kind of the fair, just having some divas in mind, just in the pitch, like the format of just typical kind of out and about as far as this first one goes. A good type pitch. Bomba is a pretty nice one within the fair behind. It's like a rowdy and crowded kind of social loud pack to kind of get within the aspects of some throwback kind of J.R. Rodham beats within the pitch behind. A good song to get turned to and smoke as far as this pitch can happen. Just good for gaps. It's just the product. This one, Bomba just feels like more organized, kind of white collar, kind of get togethers, pitches like that. Just a little bit more, not so much full bound kind of SFW, but just in the pitch as far as just more composition about it, not to like the full bound extent of like getting superbly tore up, but it just has the pitch of like social kind of festivities within the format. Just the composition about the song is a little bit more surprising for Sean Kingston within the pitch, because usually it's just more typical kind of, usually it's just a little bit more tropical drink, like margarita type music within the aspect. This has a little bit more composition and more kind of hotel and just more mingle type moments within the pitch, but it's good aspects there to kind of get those formats, this good type tone. J.R. Rodham is on here a few times within some of those type pitches. He also produces like Ordinary Girl and How We Survive, which How We Survive is a real excellent one as well, like I was saying. But yeah, Ordinary Girl's a pretty dope one within aspects as well. It's like a composed and driven kind of makeshift going to kind of get within the aspects here. Just some basic day slag, I'd have to say, and just a summary kind of traffic bop to kind of have within the aspects. So this one is like when I was talking about Love Ecstasy kind of being a more recreational type fair. Just Bell is in mind within the pitch. Just like some sleek and kind of quick traverse type tones within the pitch of just quickness, I'd have to say. Ordinary Girls just more amidst like the Monday, Tuesday kind of makeshift to just like the slag of just like, yep, I've got to be at work in 15 minutes. Some of those type fairs, maybe just grabbing like a donut or two, some of those type pitches, but just the usual kind of traffic, donuts, bagels, some of those type fairs within the format as far as those pitches kind of go. Just an aspect of it. I think that basically takes care of every song I talked about on here, minus Smoke Signals. So talk about Smoke Signals, it's like a routine, dope kind of early 2010s EDM makeshift unwind to kind of get with the aspects of it. Just some commercial appeal about this one. Definitely some dredge. This feels ripped out of like the summer of 2012 and like early 2013, back when Pitbull and LMFAO, some of those type folks were huge just within those formats. Once again, Sean Kingston translates to these particular sounds pretty damn well within the aspects of it. It's just kind of the pitch as far as saying that you just look after it. It's just kind of unfortunate that this particular movement just didn't have a lot more steam within the aspect of it. I mean, I realize that within particular trend type fashion, you just have to say within the pitch that it's just kind of like when you think of like glam metal or hair metal, some of those type pitches, or G-funk, some of those particular type of appeals. Eventually these movements are going to kind of ride out within the pitch, but it's just kind of format that it does kind of feel bittersweet, because it's just the pitch as far as saying that it's kind of the product. It's just like a double whammy of the bittersweetness, just because it's pretty much like the product of Sean Kingston not being around as much, because this kind of felt like an album that kind of was getting by like not so much the skin of its teeth, but just kind of product that's like, you know, there may not be 12 or 13 more Sean Kingston albums within some of those type pitches. So it's just the format as far as saying, but you just have to look after it. So I look after the tone. That's the particular product about this album. Maybe I didn't talk about Save One For Me either. I look within the pitch. So Save One For Me, this one reminds of like a mid-2000s kind of alternative work shift relief as far as this first going to happen. Something that like folks like Under Oath and Panic at the Disco would have done. Some of that particular 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock p.m. type dredges within Orange Skies type stuff. Just within an Orange Skies type stuff within the pitch. It's like fresh off tasks being done. Some pitches like that. Good song to grab some food, some of that type there. Get some Burger King. Get like some KFC. Some of those type pitches just in the form as far as just the typical type relief. It just the unwindage as far as this first can happen. So it's just within a good aspect as far as this pitch can happen. Just particularly has some good type appeals with it. So yeah, I just look after it here. Yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score I'll go ahead and give maybe like a 9.5 out of 10. I would give it a higher score within pitch, because the blistering type of appeal of this album is definitely pretty high, but it's just the factoid as far as saying that there's just not songs I think is full bound that folks are going to recognize. It's more kind of the product of introducing folks to like some cool, and it's just the product of introducing folks to like some cool and super sleek type moments within the aspect in like a summer kind of EDM and mixtape type sense within the full boundedness. It's not to say like this is not enjoyable, it's just kind of the format that if you're looking for like the songs that folks are going going to remember, that were kind of like staples and earworms out of like the early 2010s. Some of those stuff just was not as full bound. It's just when I said it was tertiaries kind of within the pitch, that they're like some of the singles that were released around that time. There might be folks who remember like some of the ones I was talking about that he released in 2011, 2010, 2012, 2013. It was just in the pitch as far as saying that not many of these are really on this album. Just 2 of them are on the standard album, and one of which, if you buy the Japanese edition, is on an additional song on here. So it's just the pitch, but it's just kind of, it's unfortunate that these singles just did not have like some home body of work to kind of have that package, because it probably would have helped bolster this product. At least that could have helped would have helped chisel it along a little bit better. Not to say it wasn't chiseled. I mean, it gets a 10 out of 10, but it's just in the pitch as far as saying I am glad that there are some new songs on here, because the new songs are definitely pretty blisteringly excellent, but just as the casual type appeal is just not as, I mean, these are good songs, but just the rampancy of like the connect on here seems more maybe within question. But I look after this, is this the concept? But in terms of future, like Sean Kingston's at least dropped an album as of 2022, but he's kind of going like through some pending cases, some of those type pitches. So that's some unfortunate aspect within those tones, but I am going to get, there's some other Sean Kingston type projects I want to get to within some of those type of appeals. So it's just on pitch as far as saying, but this is a classic here, just being able to say 2013, he was still nailing things within pitch, despite the fact that this is a quieter and just more off to the wayside type album, but definitely has the blistering appeal and does it in spades.